It was a red tsunami, period. America was ready for it. Americans were ready for it, and Americans made it happen. Not quite the same up in Canada during our 2021 election. We'll see what happens the next time there's an election. The only problem is, up in Canada, it won't make a freaking difference, because if you think there's a wild difference between the Conservative Party of Canada, the CPC, and the Liberals, you don't pay attention to Canadian politics. People seem to forget about this. Just a little refresher for those who don't pay attention to Canadian politics. Canadian MPs vote to ban LGBT, quote, conversion therapy. The legislation would make it illegal to have a child undergo the practice or have anyone unwillingly undergo it. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's Liberals proposed the measure, though its passage prompted applause from both sides of the aisle. Listen to this. The bill must now be approved of the aisle. The bill got approved unanimously. It's the bill that criminalizes psychologists from telling a trans kid, you might not be trans, that it might be a phase. Maybe don't go taking puberty blockers that are going to stunt your growth and give you micro penis for the rest of your life. Maybe don't go ahead and mutilate your genitals in a way that's going to impede their proper functioning for the rest of your life. Maybe don't go do certain things that's going to make it impossible for you to reach climax as an adult. They made it illegal to do that, and it was unanimously approved by the so-called Conservative Party of Canada. So if you think that they're radically different than the Liberals, I'll adopt, I think it's a Michael Malice expression, that conservatives are Democrats or liberals driving at the speed limit. That's what's going on in Canada. And if you had any lingering doubt as to how bad it truly is and how you can't rely on the Conservative Party of Canada for jack squat, let's get into this. You all remember this, the Russia frenzy. In America, they went, the indictment of the RT, the Russia Today or Russia Television, using Tenet Media, Lauren Chen and her husband, to dupe commentators in America, prominent conservative commentators, to prop up and repeat Russian propaganda for the purposes of undermining Western democracy and sowing discord. You remember this. I mean, it's the indictment of two people who are not here, who are never going to appear in this case, but they got to run with the headlines. Tim Pool, Dave Rubin, Matt Christensen, Laura Southern, Russian propagandists, because allegedly in this indictment, RT employees acting as agents to Russia were surreptitiously siphoning millions of dollars through this company, Tenet Media, and Lauren Chen, was using this company to dupe commentators into saying the exact same things they've always said before, during, and they'll say after. Yeah, made total sense. It's all a smokescreen so that the government can use it, the media can use it to demonize conservatives, to demonize right-wing commentators, and in Canada, so they can use it to distract from their actual foreign government interference into their politics, that being from China and India. In Canada, they subpoenaed or summoned Lauren Chen, Tenet Media. You know her. Everyone loved her. Maybe not everyone loved her, but everyone liked her. She was a very, very reasonable person, reasonable perspectives and reasonable points of views. They summoned her as part of their inquiry into Russian interference into Canadian politics and propaganda. The ideological orgy between the conservatives and the liberals in grilling Lauren Chen and promoting this absolute insane theory of Russian interference through social media. Either everybody does it or nobody does it, or everybody does it, but it's not okay when they do it and it's okay when America does it. They want to justify in Canada the fact that they censored free speech, removed from the airways or caused to be removed from the airways RT, because it's Russian propaganda, but the BBC is not British propaganda, both state-run news outlets, whatever. They summon Lauren Chen, and these dipshits in office sit there stroking each other's backs, stroking each other's egos, and protecting themselves by distracting from the actual foreign government interference into Canadian politics from China and India. And they're going after this poor soul because they think she knowingly took money from knowing Russia assets to knowingly dupe conservative commentators who were always going to be promoting the same talking points that they were always doing before, during, and after, and that this woman is a traitor and a Russian asset to undermine Western society. Listen, I'm going to play a couple of these and commentate afterwards. The first one we're going to see is Raquel Dansha, a so-called conservative MP. Listen to this. It's a little long, but it's worth it.
You can understand that the Public Safety and National Security Committee of Canada is incredibly concerned that if there is a Canadian citizen such as yourself receiving, according to the indictment, $10 million and falsely misleading commentators of your platform or where that money is coming from, and the purpose of that commentary is to propagate Russian government positions that deliberately undermine the West. Do you have any concerns of that, of the moral authority of that?
First of all, the question doesn't make sense, so maybe think it through better the next time, Raquel. They're taking the allegations of this indictment, which hasn't gone anywhere, in which Lauren Chen is not named as a defendant, taking the allegations as proven fact, and then expecting Lauren Chen to answer. These are not questions. These are accusations. Expecting her to answer these accusations. Do you not have any problem taking foreign money? Oh my God, taking foreign money. How much money from China, directly or indirectly, have the liberals, have the conservatives taken for that matter? This is a smokescreen to conceal, to distract from the actual corruption within the liberal and conservative party. This is not anything about justice or security, because allegedly someone, a foreign person, was financing the operations of a social media company that contracted with commentators who didn't change their messaging whatsoever. And by the way, we're not putting out pro-Russia messaging in any event.
For the reasons already given, I have no comment.
Mr. Chair, this is obviously quite frustrating. Ms. Chen is...
It's quite frustrating. Listen to the vocal fry. The vocal fry is the same in both of the people asking the questions. It's people trying to sound intelligent. Oh, it's very frustrating. Yeah, you summoned a woman by subpoena to testify on what you now take for granted as proven facts of an indictment, to accuse her of basically treason of sorts, being a traitor, sowing discord, a traitor to Canada because they took financing for a social media company to try to amplify conservative messaging. And when you hear what they are talking about as being Russian propaganda talking points, it's going to blow your mind. They want to shut up any form of critique of the government itself. I have no doubt they would try to come after me if I weren't so damn squeaky clean.
Been called for this committee, and the allegations are incredibly serious. That she took $10 million for her company from Russian agents, withheld the source of that funding to the commentators that she hired for tenant media, with the purpose to proliferate Russian propaganda, which, as we know very well on this committee, Russia is an adversary to Canada, looking to deliberately undermine this country, looking to see Canada weaken and fail. And the idea... Can
you imagine the faux sense of importance that you have to think that Russia gives a sweet bugger all about Canada? I mean, I'll tell you who does care about Canada. China. China, the country whose soldiers the Canadian government was training on Canadian soil for wintertime combat. India cares about Canada as well. They've been financing some political candidates, heavily. Russia probably could care less about Canada. In their own mind, they are the most important. They're the most important politicians on earth. They're conducting the most important inquiry on earth. Inquiry into a social media company that allegedly took financing of $10 million, which Lauren Chen, as far as I understand, even from the accusations, didn't keep. It was contracted out to commentators so they could license some of their content. These politicians, they're the most important people on earth right now.
That a fellow Canadian, Ms. Chen, would take large amounts of money to undermine the Canadian interest. I take great personal and moral issue with that. Do you?
For the reasons already given, I have no comment.
That's your conservative Raquel Dancho grilling Lauren Chen. They summoned her by subpoena. They held her in contempt afterwards because she was basically pleading the Fifth. But as she explained in her opening statements, Canada doesn't have the equivalent of a Fifth Amendment, the right to prevent self-incrimination, but it's got something analog in the Charter of Rights. And so she's not answering questions because these were never questions. When did you stop beating your husband, Lauren Chen? When did you stop being a traitor, Lauren Chen? Listen to this one, this diatribe coming from the liberal. And you tell me if you can determine an ideological difference between the liberal and the conservative.
Sure. I find it interesting. I didn't know who Ms. Chen was in advance of the U.S. indictment. Some of these kind of conspiracy theorist peddling accounts tend to be a dime a dozen.
Can you appreciate what this arrogant specimen just said right here? I didn't know who she was. These conspiracy theory accounts are a dime a dozen. Oh, why? I wonder why she wouldn't answer questions to this verbal abuse, this public shaming. This is a struggle session. This is what they did in Mao's China. Get the victims, shame them, put them on blast. And I know that Lauren Chen probably doesn't want people paying attention to this, but I'm not going to sit here and let this type of public shaming happen without shaming the people who are doing the shaming. This is disgusting. This is objectively atrocious. They create their committee. They got to investigate Russian disinformation in Canadian politics. And Lauren Chen is now their victim. Conspiracy theories are a dime a dozen. What sort of conspiracy theories did Lauren Chen put out there, Madam O'Connell?
The real interesting factor, though, is who's paying for some of this disinformation.
Disinformation? Let's hear what the examples of disinformation put out by Lauren Chen is. Let's hear it. Liberal. They want to criminalize anything that they do not agree with. Call it disinformation. Accuse it. Do you have any Russian supporters, Viva, in your locals community? Do you have any Chinese supporters? I'm sorry. Did you get a super chat on YouTube from someone who was based in Russia, Viva? Oh, shit.
The witness has actually attacked trans kids, 2S LGBT community, women, men who stand up for women's equality. She suggested are on their periods and should eat a tub of ice cream.
Can you believe this? This is what they're bringing up against Lauren Chen as disinformation. She attacked the LGBTQ. Oh, I'm sorry now. So if you don't sit there and bend over backwards to placate the 2S LGBTQIA plus community, whatever the hell numbers and letters are on it now, if you complain about that and you complain about men in women's sports and boys in girls' locker rooms, you're propagating Russian talking points, and all they have to do is link you somehow to some foreign interest to say now it's foreign funded. These people can't piss off fast enough.
Doesn't seem to care about the ramifications of comments like this posted on the internet, attacking Ukrainian sovereignty.
Oh, so now you have to support the war in Ukraine, or you're a Russian asset.
And basically saying whatever.
Basically saying you need to support endless foreign wars. And if you don't, and we concoct or even manufacture, we don't know if this was a setup yet. We don't know who financed Tenet Media. Oh, the money came from countries other than Russia. We don't know who the hell is behind this. And by the time we find out, and there's good reason to believe past this prologue, that there's probably deep state fingerprints on this. If ever we find that out, well, they've already done the damage in the meantime. They called Tim Pool a Russian propagandist, a Trump, surrogate. They besmirched Dave Rubin. They besmirched Matt Christensen, Lauren Southern. They've already dragged you through the mud and turned you into a traitor in the public eye. And my goodness, there's a lot of smooth-brained sycophants who are more than eager to jump on the bandwagon. And by the time the truth comes out, who the hell cares anymore? It's the next election cycle.
She feels like without the consideration of implications to those people she attacks.
Oh, I have to consider the feelings of the people that I criticize on the internet.
I find it quite interesting that now, as she has an opportunity to defend some of these comments, perhaps it's the single lady's cat that's got her tongue.
Can you believe these liberal pieces of shit bringing in J.D. Vance stuff into Canadian politics, claiming that Trump is the problem in Canadian politics? These MFers bring it in. She expects Lauren Chen to answer to this. Oh, you have a chance to explain yourself here, Madam Chen, Russian agent. Oh, what's that? The single lady's cat has got your tongue. This is Canada. This is the liberals and the conservative. If you think that she was any better, I would respectfully disagree.
Because she seems to be very opinionated when it comes to views that she wants to spew, but not how she's making money on spreading those views and getting those likes.
If you receive money from anything outside of Canada, you can't do that anymore.
So I think it is pretty interesting that those who believe in freedom until they face consequences for their own actions refuse to take responsibility for those actions and for not recognizing laws that exist in Canada and the US regarding sanctions. And that it's okay if an individual wants to make money off of sanctioned entities, but then when it comes time to answer for those things, doesn't seem to not be able to find words to speak.
Doesn't seem to not be able to find words to speak. All right, maybe you should go back to school.
Disappointing, but also not surprised, if I'm being completely honest. So I'll give you, Ms. Chen, one last question or one last opportunity.
One last chance.
How much money did you or your company receive from the Russian government, a Russian entity, a Russian sanctioned entity to promote and spread the materials that you spread online?
Can you believe that? When did you stop beating your husband, Ms. Chen? We know what the allegations are in the indictment, and they've run with it as though it's proven fact so that they can drag Lauren Chen through the mud, turn her into public enemy number one, and use it as a pretext to suppress any form of political critique of the Trudeau regime in Canada.